Hey everybody, Tyler Cruz here, also known as Always Dizzy. Last night I played round two in the 2025 Nick Peters Memorial. Um, so as a reminder, this is a tournament that has a round every week. So every Monday with a total of 5 rounds during the month of March. So yesterday was round two. I was paired up against Antony Stevens, and I'll be reading my notes here. So Antony he's a regular club player at the smaller university club. It's a really tiny club held at the university, separate from the main club in my city. And I've played him around maybe 4 blitz games, I think. Maybe it might have been 5 in the past. And I won them all, but the most recent 2 games were kind of close, and I had to work for the wins. So he has been improving over time, and his rating has been increasing online. And he played in a rapid time control tournament last November, and he beat a pretty strong player there, actually, like a 1700. I think he was 1700 at the time. Might have been 1800 actually. Yeah, so he showed up 4 minutes late into the round. Had he been 6 more minutes late, it would have been a forfeit, and I would have won by default. But I did actually want him to show up because I prefer to earn my wins, to earn my points, rather than just have them given to me. Plus, I paid $4 for parking, so I kind of wanted to, I wanted to earn my win. I didn't just want to drive there, spend time going to the tournament, and then not play a game and just get the win that way. So I was happy when I saw him show up. So he started with knight f3, and Antony, he's a regular ready / Catalan type of setup player as white, and I played f5. Against knight f3, I used to play different things, and I still occasionally do, but c5, trying to transpose into a Sicilian, which can only be done if white agrees. Or you can play. I also play knight f6, and playing it more like I guess kind of like a King's Indian defense. And that's primarily what the other ways I play against it. But here I played f5. He played d4, e6, and he played g3 here, continuing with his setup. Now, actually, it was kind of weird. He actually picked up the c4 pawn and put it on c4, and then just as quickly he put it back really quickly and then played g3, which was really weird. But I didn't say anything, and I just let it go. He might not even have realized he did it. But since the move orders here don't matter, at least the way that I play against this, I didn't say anything. But I was a little surprised that he just kind of blatantly played c4 and then just played g3. But again, since it doesn't affect anything, I just let it slide. I played knight f6, played bishop g2, bishop e7, and c4. So Antony doesn't mind delaying castling. I've noticed that's not my style. I just feel like, why tempt fate? While c4 is perfectly fine here. Yeah, again, why tempt fate? Just like a person, I don't know. For me, I just want to castle. You don't ever have to worry about missing something where your king is stuck in the center. So I castled here, and he still didn't castle. But again, his move is still perfectly fine. He played knight c3, and I played knight e4. So this is all pretty standard fare. And here he castled. So while technically fine, I just want to make sure I'm still recording here. I'm always paranoid that it's not recording, but it is. So while technically fine, at least according to the engine, I think that if you're going to allow Nimzo pawns, meaning allowing black to take on c3 and then to get these double pawns, which you see in the Nimzo Indian, if you're going to allow that, I think as white, you need to be very well acquainted with how to play against the Nimzo Indian and those pawns specifically. Because if not, if you don't have experience with that, then I feel that castling is a practical mistake because, well, you have the double pawns, which are a weakness long term. So you really kind of need to know the ideas of how to play with them. So I took on c3, and he recaptured, obviously. And then here I made a bit of an inaccuracy. It's kind of between, it's borderline between, I would classify it between borderline mistake and inaccuracy. It's kind of right in there. But it was, it was not a great move. And I just forgot my theory here. And I played the very, very natural, couldn't be more natural, d6. And it's a thematic move, right? In the Dutch, in the classical Dutch. I just kind of forgot. And you'll see why in a second. Well, I might as well tell you now. Just reading my notes here. So it allows rook e1. So essentially d6 is just a little slow. It's just a little slow. It allows white to kind of gain the initiative. So after rook e1, now e4 is threatened, and black can't do much about it. It's going to happen. And yeah, so better would have been knight c6 here. And the difference is if rook e1 now, we have knight a5 attacking the c4 pawn. And so now white has to start defending the c4 pawn. I don't know if I've looked at c5 here, what we would do. I'm actually kind of curious. Maybe b6. Yeah, maybe b6. But it would have been the more accurate way for black to play here than what I did. So d6. And Antony, he actually did play rook e1. And this move surprised me a little bit. Because I'm just not used to seeing rook e1 in such positions. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but I just don't remember it. And so I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do about e4? Because I can't do anything about it. And just, I felt that I was just a little bit unsettled because I wasn't familiar with rook e1 and e4. And I was like wondering, whoa, why, how come I don't know about this? Now, the Dutch is a newer opening for me. So that's partly why I still don't know everything, like all the ideas. Now, I did find the best move, but again, I was just a little bit unsettled with rook e1 and e4, and that I wasn't familiar with it. So I did play knight c6 now, and he responded with d5. So this is a positional mistake. I'm now out of trouble with the e4. And the only move that makes any sense here, and as I told Antony after the game, so after the game, we went into the hallway and analyzed the game together. And so I asked him why he played some moves, and then I also gave him some pointers. Hopefully, it's good karma because I actually told him how to play against me, and I showed him all of his mistakes, and he thanked me for it. But yeah, hopefully that doesn't bite me in the ass, right? Next time we play. But yeah, so D5. So yeah, sorry. So the only move that makes any sense here, in my opinion, is E4, because why play rook E1 if you're not going to play E4? It doesn't make any sense. And then what I also told him was, and well, you'll see it more on the following move, but one of Black's dreams here in the Dutch is to play E5, to have pawns on F5 and E5. And this is a very common mistake that White players play against the Nimzo Indian. Again, this is not the Nimzo Indian, but it has many of the same properties, is to push D5 and then Black can play E5. And in the Nimzo Indian, this knight often goes to C5 via this transfer. So yeah, he played D5, and I'll just show you. Had he played E4 here, and I take, rook takes, knight E5, and then C5. This is +1 for White. Black is just a little bit awkward here. E6 is a weak point for Black, and there's questions about what Black is going to do. It's kind of awkward. Both bishops are in limbo a little bit. So that would have been White's best way forward. But after D5, I play knight E5, and the knight might look poorly placed here, but this is a common way to play against the Nimzo pawns. You put the knight on A5 and you put the bishop on A6 eventually, so B6, bishop A6, and then both minor pieces threaten C4. So yeah, I learned this from my coach years ago, but yeah, this is one of the most common ways to play against these Nimzo pawns. And plus, the knight can't easily get kicked out of A5. It's almost impossible for it to get kicked out. So it can sit there forever in most cases. So my opponent played knight D2, which was another positional mistake. This allows Black to, what I said before, play the dream move of E5. And so instead of knight D2, D takes E6, which is what I was expecting was best. But I can understand why he didn't want to play this, because after bishop takes E6, I'm hitting C4. And then after knight D4, I win a pawn, but Black has some dynamic play here. So yeah, sorry, White has some dynamic play. So Black is up a pawn, but I think this is actually even slightly better for White by a hair. Because like E4, might be a thing. But yeah, that's what I was assuming he would play. I thought he was going to take on E6, but he played knight D2, and then I played E5, and I played this pretty much instantly because it was a kind of a no-brainer. And then he played queen A4. And this doesn't really accomplish anything for White because I can just defend it with B6. At the same time, it's kind of hard to recommend anything for White here. So so I played B6 and he played knight B3. Knight B3, very, very natural move. Trying to trade off knights because my knight is harassing his C4 pawn. But this allows Black to annex more space here, which I'll show you. And I actually spent a long time on this move debating between bishop D7 and knight B7. Both moves are pretty much the same. Like the difference between them is like almost non-existent. What's the word I'm trying to come up with? Non-existential? I don't know if that fits, but the difference is minimal, okay? And 5 minutes was the time control was 50 plus 10, right? So 5 minutes is a long time. And I probably spent too much time on this. I ended up playing knight B7. But let me just backtrack though, because instead of knight b3, there was a very nice move here from white, which is not a simple find. But in fact, I wrote in my notes here, I wish there was an annotation that is one step below a single exclamation mark, because that's what I would give this. Because I don't like I am very cautious about how I use exclamation marks in my annotations. It has to be like a really, really good move. And then double exclam is super rare. That's like just a purely brilliant move. And so, yeah, I would like something that's better, just one notch below an exclamation mark. Anyways, that move, feel free to pause the video if you want to find it. But from white here, c5 is what the computer suggested as the best move. And after d takes c5, we can't take with a b pawn because the knight will fall, right? So after d takes c5, the best move here is actually e4, but I think finding that the two move sequence is probably hard to find, but more straightforward maybe if you is after queen takes is d6, right? There's now a discovery on the rook, and he's hitting the bishop. So after queen takes d6, there's a lot of calculation required here, but bishop takes a8, bishop d7, unlocking the bishop or the rook to attack the bishop, and then the bishop attacks the queen, double attack. White has a Zwisch and Zug of knight c4, and after bishop takes a4, knight takes d6, c6, preventing the escape of white's bishop, bishop b7, bishop takes d6, bishop a6. So there would have been a lot to calculate there, but here black is still better at -1. But this was an interesting line that was worth considering from white. So that, so c5 was a very strong move. And again, the best follow-up after d takes c5 is e4. But that's getting pretty complicated. Okay, so we played knight b3. But again, this is very natural. And it's possible I would have played this myself as white. I went knight b7, you went queen a3, and proactively just getting the hell out of there. And then I played a5. So reclaiming the a5 square for my knight to continue to harass the a4 pawn. So it wasn't just about grabbing space. I actually just wanted to take back the a5 square for my knight. He played queen b2, a4, continuing with my plan, knight d2, knight a5, and we're back. And then he played a3. So a3, another positional mistake. So you might be seeing a theme so far. My opponent making a lot of small positional mistakes, but they add up. And I understand why he played this, because he's scared of me playing a3, right? Grabbing more space. But the thing is, I never would have played a3, because then I have to babysit that pawn with my rook, right? Like forever, essentially. And that's such a waste of my rook. Yes, I get more space, but my rook has to defend that pawn. And there's also ways for him to just attack it with like knight b1, for example. So I wasn't actually planning to play a3. And so when he played it, I did not think this was a great move. So first of all, he does weaken b3, which can be an access point for my knight long term. But more importantly, I think the problem is that he's putting the pawn on the same color square as his bishop here. And so long term, that can be quite a problem for him, because he's just left with a really bad bishop. And then here I like the move that I came up with on my following move here, and that was bishop g5. So yeah, again, I was pretty pleased with myself for finding it. It's not like it's a hard move to find, but to understand the reasons why it's good, I think was what made me happy. So continuing to play positionally, this is my bad bishop, right? Because my pawns are all on dark squares, and so I was happy to trade it off. At the same time, I'm threatening to remove the sole defender of the c4 pawn. And if e3, which is what my opponent played, my plan here, and as I continued, was to play f4 to strike and to open things up here. But this was actually a mistake, and this was my second mistake in the game, counting the d6 one as one earlier. But I didn't actually realize the mistake until I went home and then analyzed it with an engine. And the reason is because after e takes f4 and e takes f4, I just totally missed that white has knight f3 here. And that unlocks his bishop to help attack f4. And so if I retreat, because he's also threatening to take the bishop, so if I retreat the bishop, he then has knight d4. And so it's still a little bit complicated to assess this, but play might continue like like this: knight takes c4, queen a2, knight a5, knight e6. And taking would be bad here because his advanced pawn. So after queen f6, he's winning the exchange. And then queen takes f8, and white is a little bit better here. And I just completely missed. Yeah, I feel you don't have to see all that beforehand, but I just totally missed that he had knight f3. I just thought he had to recapture or do nothing, but I just missed knight f3. So yeah, this was a mistake. Any other move would have been better because my position is so good. I could have played anything else, but yeah, that was a mistake. But in the game, he didn't take, so we both missed this, and he played h4. Now h4 is a blunder, and yeah, he just panicked here because I'm attacking and his position is not great. Yeah, he overreacted and panicked. Yeah, his king is just in too much danger now. It was in danger before a little bit because, well, I'm attacking, but this is just far too weakening of his king. So just from experience, I would never even consider pushing that pawn. Like, can I flip the board here? So if you look at it from white's perspective, yeah, I mean, just from experience, you don't have to calculate anything. Just looking at it, it's just going to be too weakening. So yeah, this was a blunder. I took on g3. Now I did consider taking on h4, sacking the bishop, but only very briefly because I thought this, yes, maybe this is winning and maybe it's a faster way to win the game. But it wasn't clear, and there was no reason for me to play speculative lines when I could just continue playing safely and just enjoying the better position that I had. So yeah, I took on g3 and he recaptured. And then again, this was faced in front of me, and it is good. In both cases it was good, but so was the move that I played. And this would have also required more calculation. So pragmatically, I don't think it's a good thing to consider because I don't have unlimited time, right? So I just calmly put it on h6 where I kept control over the e3 pawn, and just avoiding any speculation and keeping things as simple as possible. And then he played bishop f1, which is a mistake. It does defend c4, so that's his reason for playing it. But it also further weakens his king. His king is getting weaker and weaker by the second. He played h4. He's missing the f pawn, and now his bishop is not protecting. It's not protecting these two squares as it was previously. So, despite this, I actually spent a whopping 7 minutes on my reply here, going down from, and I have my score sheet in front of me here with my times on them, so I know how much time I spent. Going from 32 minutes to 25 on what to play here. Because what do you do? Right? Like, you can pause the video if you want and try to figure out how to continue here. Like, everything should be completely winning for black. And I felt like I'm completely winning. But how? How do you continue? The most natural move here, like if it was a bullet game, is queen f6, right? To infiltrate to f2. But he had knight e4 in it, so I just kept discarding that idea and looking for something else. And I thought about bishop a6, but bishop a6 doesn't really change anything in the position apart from taking my bishop off of, attacking his king side, because he's already defending c4 twice. So if I put another attacker, it doesn't do anything different. And I didn't play queen f6 in the game, but actually queen f6 was the best move according to the engine, and I just missed. So after knight e4, I just missed the simple. Well, maybe it's not so simple. I have to give myself credit because queen g6 is the best follow up, but after queen g2, it's not the simplest way, a position to assess, because I think the best way to continue was knight b3, rook b1, and here there's still not a very clear way forward. So I don't know. Maybe I can give myself, or I shouldn't give myself a hard time, because I don't know if it's as obvious as the computer thinks it is on how to continue the attack there. So in the game, I played queen d7, which is a weird ass move. But I just wanted to get to g4, and he doesn't have a great way to deal with it. If bishop e2, I think I was just going to go to h3. Although then he has knight f1. No, sorry. If he goes there, I just take check. Yeah. So I went queen d7, and he played knight e4, and I went bishop a6, attacking his c4 pawn once again. And then he played knight d2, which is a mistake. So he actually thought for 5 minutes before making this move, but yeah, he overreacted. And he asked me after the game, he thought this was a mistake, and it was a mistake. But he was asking me what he should have done better, and I kept telling him, and I was being honest. I wasn't trying to be a smartass, but I was telling him you were pretty much dead at this point already, which is true. And so I kept telling him that his mistakes were earlier, because it's too late now. The moves here don't matter really. Yes, this was not a great move, and he had better moves here, but he needs to focus on the positional mistakes he made before this. What I suggested to him after the game was queen g2 and just giving up the c4 pawn, because sitting back and just letting me impose my will on him is not going to do him any favors, right? He needs to take some risks and try to create something, maybe attack, create complexity. He can't just sit back and because it's not going to work. His king is too exposed. I control the whole position. His pieces are awkward. Yeah, so this cut off his queen. So the best move was queen g2, but he played knight d2. And I'll just show you what it looks like. So had he played queen g2 and then gives me the c4 pawn, again, it's White's in a very bad position here, but at least his pieces can move a little bit, and it was his best try. Okay, so after knight d2, I played queen g4, and he played king h2, which was a mistake. King g2 was, I think, the best move here, and the reason is because what I played, because now I have rook f2 check, which is what I played. He played bishop g2, and I went knight takes c4. I considered taking with the bishop. Couldn't really decide. I didn't want to spend too much time on it because it probably doesn't matter so much, but I took with the knight. But actually, I missed a mate in 4 here. You can try to pause the video. Well, you can pause the video and try to figure it out if you want. But I just missed. Yeah, bishop a6 is a, or sorry, bishop c8 is a, it's a mate in 4 because we can threaten to come in here. And if he goes king g1, we can just take on g3. So I completely missed that idea. But I took on c4, and he played queen b1 so that he's not pinned by my rook. And I went knight takes d2, bishop takes d2, rook takes d2. And he played rook a2. And here it was completely unnecessary for me to think, like, go into a bit of a think and calculate here. If I was down to just a couple of minutes on the clock, I wouldn't have. But since I did have some time here, yeah, I had 20 minutes. I had 20 minutes on the clock here. But for the sake of accuracy and to try to I can't think of a better word, but be professional. Obviously, I'm not a professional player, but you know, it pays to be as accurate as you can. I thought for a bit here, and I did actually play the best move according to the engine, which was bishop d3. So again, if I didn't have much time on the clock here, I would just grab the rook. But yeah, I played bishop d3, and so my point was. And my opponent didn't do this, but after queen a1, defending his rook, he can't take the rook because I'll take his queen, right? So after queen a1, rook takes a2, queen takes a2, I could argue that my bishop is better on d3 than it is on a6. So just like a tiny little improvement, because now maybe I can lock things up like this or attack here if I need to. So yeah, but he actually didn't do that, and he took my rook, which is actually the top engine move. So I didn't even consider this. I thought for sure he's playing queen a1. I thought like I thought 100% he's playing queen a1, but yeah, he took on d2, and so I took his queen. He played bishop h3. I went queen e4. And I did have to be a bit careful here. As soon as he played bishop h3, I was like, oh, yeah, I have to be a little bit careful because there's, you know, I have to be a little bit careful. I would have to move this rook off the back rank for him to mate me, but just had to be careful. You don't want to screw this up. So I went queen e4. He went rook b2. I went bishop d3. He went rook b4. And I took on d5. Note, I wasn't scared of this pin because I always had queen a2. He went bishop g2. I went queen a2. King h1, getting off that pin. And around this point, I was getting increasingly surprised that he wasn't resigning. But sometimes it's difficult to kind of face, you know, the facts and admit defeat when you're playing in an over-the-board tournament game. So I can kind of understand. Yeah, I played e4. He went rook d4. Went rook f8. Because he's threatening to take on d3, and then my rook is hanging. So I still had to be careful here. I went rook f8. Bishop takes e4. And I took back. and then he resigned. So it was a pretty straightforward win. It felt like at the time, it felt like I steamrolled him. But I did make those 2 mistakes in the game, so that I didn't notice until I came home and looked at with the engine. So yeah, it was not a perfect game. I'll just to show you them again. The first one was when I played D6. It's a small detail maybe, but yeah, it's not like it's an inaccuracy. It's not a huge thing, but when if you're going to play an opening like the Dutch, where you're worse on move 1, you can't afford to make other inaccuracies, because then you're just going to be notably worse. So that was the first mistake, and then the other one was missing when I played F4, and then when I played F4, and then I didn't see that after takes he had knight F3. Didn't see that. So those were my 2 mistakes. Apart from that, I'm very happy with how I played. It was just too many positional concessions from my opponent there. So I told him to look up how to play against the Nimzo pawn, Nimzo structure and the Nimzo Indian. So that was round 2. I am now 2 out of 2, obviously. 3 rounds to go. I already know who my next opponent is, and I haven't ever played him before, but I've looked at his games, and he seems pretty good. He seems pretty solid. So it'll be a tough game for me. I don't know. It'll be a tough game. And then after that, I'm not going to have any more easy games. Every game's going to be very tough for me now. So I don't know. I'll give it my best shot. We'll see what happens. So stay tuned for about a week from now when I play my next game. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I'll see you next time.